At some point in your life, you saw something that absolutely blew you away. For many of us, it was a car, that shiny metal rocket that had us from the moment we set eyes on it. Maybe it was something Italian, like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Or maybe something more muscular, like a Mustang or a Corvette. Or maybe it was a Porsche. This story is about a Porsche, more specifically, the Porsche 944. Every story has its backstory, so let's go ahead and start with that. A German auto designer with a love for car racing named Ferdinand Porsche in 1948 decided to build his own sports car company. His first production car, the 356, was based on an inexpensive platform, the Volkswagen Beetle, a car that he had designed years before the war. The 356 was successful and was produced until 1964, when the Porsche company created their iconic sports car, the 911. But it was as expensive as it was fast, and the market for sports cars is fickle by nature. It wasn't long before sales dropped off and Porsche began to struggle. Volkswagen was struggling too, so the two German manufacturers agreed to collaborate. The new sports car would be designed by Porsche and made by Volkswagen. However, Volkswagen backed out at the last minute. Porsche decided to produce the car anyway, but the 914, as it was called, was still widely considered more Volkswagen than Porsche. A decade later, Porsche and Volkswagen again decided to work together on a new car, the 924. The new car would be radically different from any car Porsche had ever made before. It had an engine in the front. Putting the engine up front and the transmission, or transaxle, in the back gave the car incredible balance. And as Porsche put it back in the day,
it approaches the ideal 50-50 weight distribution.
A well-balanced car is much faster and more predictable through the curves. The car was very successful, and a much less expensive entry point for Porsche buyers than the rest of Porsche's lineup. The 924's success was crucial to the survival of the company, but the car had a few major problems. It was still mostly a Volkswagen, it lacked the power that a true sports car should have, and it even shared its engine with the AMC Gremlin. The engineers at Porsche were stung at the criticism that the 924 wasn't a true Porsche. They decided to redesign the car into something that would put that to rest. In 1982, the world got its first look at the result. The 944 was the perfect piece to complete Porsche's puzzle, with its genuine Porsche components, racing-inspired body with dramatically flared fenders, and of course, the increased power of its engine. This car was destined to become Porsche's best-selling car of all time up to that point, selling over 163,000 of them. The 944 does a great job of executing the perfect sports car recipe. It has an amazing mix of great looks, power, balance, and practicality.
The 944 is a little bit more easier car to daily drive, and so it's just kind of a good balance, good overall car in general.
When the 944 arrived on the scene, it immediately made an impact. Before it was even available at the dealer, it was featured in the hit movie 16 Candles, making it an instant icon of the 80s.
My first impression of the 944, I remember I saw it in 16 Candles, and I loved the car, but back in the day, I couldn't afford a 944, so I had the 240Z, but I took my first 240Z and painted it and made it look like that car.
How could you not like it? It was a Porsche, it looked incredible, and thousands of young adults fell in love with it instantly. When it comes to looks, the design team at Porsche, led by Antonelli Lapine, took the basic lines of the 924 and improved upon it by making it more aggressive, giving it wider hips, and adding more curvature to the body.
My dad had a 924 prior, which was kind of the predecessor to the 944, and it was at the time a very, very beautiful car until the 944 came out. You know, much wider flares around the wheel wells, just the shape of it is cleaner.
When the 944s came out in '83, I was just, blown away by them.
And from the time I saw the 944, it's just like, wow, that's a great looking car.
The design is timeless, still turns heads, and stands out dramatically from other cars on the road today. The success of this car is largely due to the brilliant marketing strategies of Porsche, who put the car in movies, had brilliant advertisements, and made some rad posters to spice up any teenager's walls with the ultimate 80s dream car.
Literally, I had a poster when I was, even before high school, of that car on my wall.
But it's not just looks that makes this car so special. The 944 was purpose-built to outperform anything in its class.
The 944 Turbo, big difference in power output. If you get a turbo model, they keep up with the big boys on the track.
In 1983, the 944 Turbo could accelerate from 0 to 60 in just 5.8 seconds, a remarkable speed for its time. To put that into perspective, a top-of-the-line BMW of the same year was a whole second slower.
In the late 80s, that was a lot. So it was actually a very fast, pretty prestigious car back then.
But straight-line speed was never the goal of this car. Porsche had other cars to serve that purpose, such as the 911 or the 928. Due to its near 50-50 weight distribution from front to back, the 944 was a beast on curvy roads, able to take them on at high speed with confidence. The car is built to last, with a galvanized steel body that resists rust and is built to exacting standards. The engine has its own distinct note as well, starting with a low rumble and working its way up to a high revving scream at top speeds. Speaking of speed, the driving experience is like nothing else. It has great acceleration, short gearing, and loves corners. Where many sports cars are engineered to stay rigidly glued to the pavement, this one grips the road lightly as it nimbly dances around corners. That's the quintessential 944 experience.
Well, I own a bunch of Porsches, and they all drive differently because they're designed differently. It has more forgiveness to it, okay? It's more stable on the corners, more stable overall, and it's just a wonderful handling car.
Sort of a combination of the way the car drives and the way that it makes you feel. And so that's what makes the car special to me.
The 944 isn't commonly seen on the road today. Perhaps that's why it turns so many heads. Older drivers smile and younger people ask, "What is that?" With its legendary performance on curves, many 944s have ended up as track vehicles. No longer daily driven, they're hauled to special track or autocross events on weekends. The other reason 944s are rarely seen is a sad one. A highly tuned precision sports car requires frequent maintenance to keep it on the road. As 944s age, their prices have dropped to the point that they can be had for bargains. This affordability has its downside. The expensive parts and service can cause budget-minded owners to skimp on regular maintenance.
These cars are so old that if you find one that's nice, it's going to need something anyway.
This inevitably results in cars with problematic or blown engines that are left derelict or hot-rodded with more modern engines. I've barely scratched the surface, but I think you can see that when you put all these things together, this car is special. If you catch a glimpse of this iconic 80s car, or if you're lucky enough to get behind the wheel, get ready. It'll take your breath away.